it's an honor for Minnesotans to have one of our greatest Vikings ever in the house. And there's a lot that you're going to be able to share today, and I'll get out of the way in just a minute and just let you go and share what's on your heart with everybody here. But first of all, where'd you grow up?
St. Paul, Minnesota.
Wow.
Yeah.
And anybody here from St. Paul? Any St. Paul people in the house? Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went to high school?
Went to Cretin-Derham Hall High School.
And then from there you went?
Well, I wanted to play in the NFL, so the only natural next step would be to go to Harvard University.
Not exactly known for being a football factory, huh?
Not exactly known for even having a football team.
Wow.
But we do have one, and yeah, that was my path, and then ended up in the NFL.
And you were drafted what year?
I was drafted in 1998, 172 picks after Peyton Manning. So that means I was 173rd. I want to do the math for the Packers fans because I see there's some of them here today.
Here we go. We're stepping into it now. So you jumped in and then you played for 15 years.
Very fortunate to play for 15 years in the NFL, 11 with the Vikings, and then I wanted to win a Super Bowl, so I had to leave. And equal opportunity offender here. I'm gonna try to make everybody a little upset by the end of this. But yeah, and then finished my last year. My last game was 12 years ago, playing with the Ravens in New Orleans, where the Ravens gave me the cheap seats up there. And fortunate to win a Super Bowl, and then called it a career.
That's amazing. And of course, that NFL Man of the Year award, pretty big deal, huh?
Yeah, it is. I mean, when they recognize you for service off the field, and when I actually made the Vikings in 1998, which all Vikings fans know, 1998 was a special year and a unfortunate ending, but that's all Viking seasons. I actually made the team, which was like a mini miracle. And I remember we had practice on that Monday, week one, and Denny Green, the coach, then said, "Hey, for you guys that don't know, Tuesday, we call it Community Tuesday. That's the day off." He said, if you're not in the community tomorrow, if you don't have anything to do, go see gentleman Brad Mattson. He's our community relations director. And I was like, well, I better be out there. If Denny, I'm just lucky to be here, right? And I went to Brad, and he sent me to a school. And it was incredible because none of these kids knew who I was, but they knew I played for the Vikings. And so they just thought it was great. And I love kids, always have. My wife and I are blessed with 8 kids.
8 kids.
We love kids.
You really love kids.
But I went, about 23 years of marriage yesterday. Yes.
Come on. That's a winning in life thing right there. Come on.
For better or for worse, my wife says I couldn't have done any better, and she couldn't have done any worse. The going to that school, education is part of my story because I wasn't a great athlete. I wasn't highly recruited, but the fact that I had good grades and was decent at football, and that got me to Harvard. It wasn't like I had all these offers to choose from. So I was like, hey kids, if you love sports, you can benefit by try really hard in school too. You never know what kind of doors it's going to open. And it just kind of took off from there, having that platform with the NFL, which the great thing about the NFL is it's a huge platform, and there's so many guys that use it and maximize it, to do good in their communities, whatever causes are near and dear to their heart. And that's what we're called to do, right? I mean, use your talents for good and to serve other people. So it's just an awesome thing to be a part of.
That's amazing. Hey, I'm going to leave with one question, and then I'm going to get off the platform and let you go. Favorite game?
My favorite game was a playoff game so I think the game was January of 2005. We went 8-8 that year. I had battled this stupid sports hernia injuries all year. I didn't even know I had like abdominal muscles. I was a lineman, right? I was like 300 pounds. I didn't even know I had muscles, but apparently they got ripped or something. And it was a very painful year, and I had surgery like midway. Anyways, we go to Green Bay, and we were 8-8. We weren't supposed to do anything, and it was just kind of one of those magical games where I mean, Favre was just throwing it up to us, and we kept catching it. I think he threw 4 picks, and we got up big, and 8 minutes left in the game, we get the ball, and it's a situation where they know you're running the ball, you know you're running the ball, the fans know you're running the ball, and normally the defense, stops you. You just run a little time off the clock and punt. Well, they couldn't stop us, and we held the ball for almost the entire 8 minutes, and that's like a lineman's dream because you're just exerting your will on them. And we came off the field, and when we get happy, we say we belly bump each other because we got big bellies, and like a lot of belly bumping going on. And nobody cares, but the linemen, we actually knew how hard that was, and what an accomplishment that was, and that was a lot of fun. So that was actually my favorite game. That was actually, for some reason, I enjoy that better than the Super Bowl. And
it was a win against the Packers.
It was a thumping against the Packers, not just a win. It was
so,
a thumping.
Bro, I'm gonna step off, but let's do a belly bump.
Thanks, man. Awkward. Belly bump. Oh, there you go. See, that's why. That's why we belly bump.
Thankfully, we didn't mess that one up
That's
too
good,
bad. Would you give it up for Matt Birk?
Thanks, Pastor Nate, and thanks for the opportunity. All I can do is really today is just share my story, and we all have a story, and it's all of us have a unique story. And I pray that whatever you're supposed to get from this, that you get it. I'm not going to tell you what that is, but very fortunate to grow up here in Minnesota and grow up with 2 very devout parents. When I grew up, we never once missed church on Sundays. We could be up north, camping somewhere, whatever, and we'd pull into the town, and this was pre Google and all that. We would just pull up at the church like 10 minutes before it started. Like my dad had an internal schedule of all the church services, but very much a part of my life growing up. Parents sent us to Catholic school. And the great thing about it was I knew who God was, I knew what he did for me, and I knew what he expected of me. And I can tell you, looking back as a child, I always felt God with me, which is a tremendous gift to be given, to have. But a lot of times when we're given gifts as children, we don't fully appreciate it. So grew up in St. Paul, and just, it was just the best. I mean, St. Paul in the 80s, I think it was peak America. It was the greatest. We'd walk to school, and we'd come home, and we played sports. That's what we did. That's what we all did. And there was tons of kids, and we played everything. And I mean, I loved sports. I loved watching the 2 minutes of sports on TV. I loved getting the newspaper, and go pouring through that. Little kids don't know what we're talking about with newspapers, but that's all right. The thing was, I wasn't any good at sports, but I didn't care. Because it was about having fun and being with my friends, and there were no travel teams, and it was fine. It was great. And then I got to high school and actually changed high schools in my sophomore year. I was transferring to Cretin-Derham Hall High School, and I'd played every sport except football. And I had a bunch of buddies already at Cretin, and they said, hey, you should go out for football. Practice starts in August. Before the school year starts, you can meet some more guys and get off on the right foot. And I was like, okay, sure, what the heck. And that's where I discovered 2 of the gifts that God gave me. He gave me the gifts of getting in people's way and grabbing onto them, right? Which you might not think of those as gifts, but those are very helpful if you're an offensive lineman. And and I appreciate. I think in the introduction, somebody said athlete. I appreciate being called an athlete, but I was a lineman. Okay. I coach middle school football. I have for some time now, and I always, lead the first day we have the stations, and I lead the lineman station. And I always say, all right, who when you kneel down at night and say your prayers, you say, dear God, please make me an offensive lineman. That's a prayer that God has never heard. So that's how I became a lineman. It was like the one thing I was actually kind of good at. And, but I also, other people recognized that too. And I liked the fact that people saw me and, hey, he's a good football player. I'd walk through the halls and it was like I was kind of somebody. I kind of stood out from the crowd. I liked that. I'd never had that before. And then I end up at Harvard University, which is an accredited institution. If you want to know how good a school Harvard is, just ask them. They will tell you. But, you end up, here's a kid. I was the, fat, redheaded, freckle-faced kid who, is slow and weak. And all of a sudden, it's like I'm at Harvard University playing football. Well, now there's a ton of people telling me how great I'm doing and how proud they are. And I really liked that. That felt good. Right? Who doesn't like to be told that they're good at something and to be recognized? Well, that in and of itself is okay, but I kind of went all in on that, where it was like I became all about that. I'm somebody because I've accomplished this. And so my parents had to go out to college. We didn't have any money, so they woke my brothers up, which they didn't like. It was early, and they drove me to the airport, which was like 5 minutes from my childhood house. And I had 2 duffel bags, which was about everything I owned, and they just dropped me at the curb and said, see you later. This was a long time ago. This was before all the security. They could have walked me to the gate. But they just chose to leave me at the curb, and which was fine. And so I got on the plane, and I went, and a coach met me at the airport, and went to campus, and we started practicing, and practiced all week. And then Sunday's our off day, and I wake up the first Sunday there in a dorm room with 7 other guys, 7 other football players, and I'm waiting for somebody to say, hey, let's go to church. And nobody said, hey, let's go to church. So I didn't go for the first time ever in my life. I feel a little guilty, but next week we practice, wake up Sunday morning again, nobody said, hey, let's go to church. And I got to tell you something, the second time not going, a lot easier, right? And then the third and the fourth, where now this was my new habit. And I justified it and I rationalized it, which we have an amazing ability to do as human beings, saying like, I've already been there, I know all that, I've done all that. Besides, look at all these great things I'm doing. Everybody tells me how great I'm doing. So a few months go by, and my mom comes to campus, and I'm leading her around and showing her, the buildings and the libraries. And, she's asking me about church. And I'm not going to say that I outright lied to my mom, but I didn't tell her the truth. And she knew that, and she gave me the talking to, but then she left. And, again, I kind of went back to, well, I got a lot going on, God. We're good. So then, lo and behold, I get drafted by the Vikings, and now I have a great excuse not to go to church on Sundays, like playing the Bears. Sorry, can't make it, right? And now, I know I'm just a lineman, and most people don't care about linemen, nor should you, and we kind of like it that way. We're all right with that. But being from St. Paul, grew up there, knew half the town anyways. I'm going out, people know who I am. I had a hamburger named after me in St. Paul. I was a huge celebrity, right? People always say, well, what was on your burger? So just so you know, it was, two patties and cheese and mayo. That was it. It's a good burger. Of course, it was double patty. Should have probably been triple. But I was really, I was experiencing more worldly success than I ever thought possible, that was my focus. Because here's what happens. I actually think prosperity derails more people than adversity. Like when you go through tough times, it's not real hard. You kind of get this, whether it's the pain or the suffering, you get laser focused and you figure out what you got to do and who you need to talk to. But when everyone's telling you how great you are, that's actually the devil, right? You say, yeah, at this point, I'd signed the biggest contract in the history of the NFL for a center. I was starting. I said everywhere I'd go, people knew me, but I was dying on the inside. And I knew it. I knew long term this wasn't going to be good. And I was looking all over the place for contentment. And then, God gives you what you need when you need it. He's never late, but he's rarely early. That's been my experience. And it's getting pretty close to a breaking point, and he put this woman in my life who I became rather smitten with. And she ended up becoming my wife. And when I met my wife, I had a drug problem. She drugged me back to church. And, yeah. So, I'd have followed her anywhere, but she's like, let's go to church. And I'm like, yeah, great. Love church. It's awesome. And went back, and that was kind of like, hey, I felt a little bit like St. Augustine. It's like, all right, I've tried everything else. Let me try you now, God. And that was kind of started the process of me coming back. Because like I said, when you're given the gift of the faith as a child, that's great. But at some point, you need to claim it as your own. And so, I didn't have this, Saul-like moment where I was knocked to the ground and blinded. But it was like, okay, this gradual coming back to get married, have our first child, and that changes you for sure. Just the physical thing that happens, I was like, oh my gosh, like must have been sick the day they showed the video in high school, because I was just like, how did that just happen, And then I was like, well, that's actually a miracle. Like I knew, there's tons of miracles going on all over the place that we don't notice, but I was like, okay, that is a miracle. Just because something happens a million times a day doesn't mean it's not a miracle. And so as this profound experience, and then 2 weeks later, I had to go to training camp. And so now I'm in this situation where it's like, started coming back, married, child, life is real. Life is very real. And now I'm responsible for other people too. So I got to figure this out. And went back to training camp. And here's the thing that people are so surprised when I tell them about the NFL. But the NFL is a very spiritual place. So many guys, you got Bibles in their lockers. There's so many Bible studies during the week. There's couple studies at night. There's a team chaplain. Every team I played on, we had a team chaplain who was there all the time, travel with the team. It's probably one of the few workplaces where you're actually encouraged to grow in your faith. And that's a great thing. But also, I think there's such a hunger for it in the NFL because we know, because we're all made in the image and likeness of God. We're all his children. We know the NFL is not real. When you're in the middle of it, it's crazy. It's crazy. You got these high highs and low lows, and, and the money's not real. It's real, but it's not real. Nobody's worth that much money. When I played football, I'd tell jokes, people would laugh. See, now nobody laughs. But and our hearts, we hunger for truth. We hunger for what is real. And so you just kind of know. And sooner or later, the NFL, I'm not looking for anybody's sympathy, but the NFL, it's a hard deal. It's a hard deal. And sooner or later, it will bring you to your knees. And so you might as well start there. And that's the same for life too. Life is hard. It's supposed to be. And if you're going to be a Christian, it's probably going to be harder. That's what you're signing up for. It's like when you sign up for football. If you're not into pain and suffering, it's voluntary, most of it. You should go play golf. Football might not be for you, okay? But so I went back to training camp and I really went deep. I went to a Bible study first time, and our team chaplain, he was so great, and he's like, I'm so glad you're here. He's like, I've been praying that you show up. He's like, how about we have breakfast every Thursday morning? And I'm like, Tom, that would be awesome. Thank you. And develop this relationship, or he asked me questions, I'd ask him questions. And, listen, for me, it's a process. every single day I try to show up and make that commitment to God, to be his follower. I think you got to be in life and faith. You got to be present to win. You got to be present to win, and so it's every day. And listen, my identity for a long time was wrapped up in what the world said I was, and what I did. It's no longer the case. My identity is rooted in being a child of God, and I hope yours is too. But I am a football player. I played football for a long time, and I do kind of footballize everything. And so part of the reason why I love the game is because it applies to so many other areas of my life, and it applies to my faith too. So I want to kind of my football story, if you will. Showed up the first day as a member of the Vikings, not knowing what to expect. It was crazy. And I opened the door to the locker room, and sitting right there, right when I opened the door, was 4 guys. It was Chris Carter, Hall of Fame, Randall McDaniel, Hall of Fame, John Randall, Hall of Fame, and Jeff Christie, who was not in the Hall of Fame. He was the starting center at the time, though, just making the Pro Bowl every year. So I was like, I wonder what the policy is on asking for autographs. Because, I was still very much a fan, and I was like, God, don't ask for an autograph. Play it cool, So I was like, so. And then walking around, and I found my locker, and had my name and helmet and shoulder pads and shoes and socks. It was it's unbelievable. At Harvard, we got 1 pair of socks the whole year. If you lost one of your socks somehow, it was like an act of God to get another pair. There's 20 pairs, all brand new. I was like, this is awesome. And inside there was a playbook. It was 1998, no iPads, so it was a playbook. And if you're old enough to remember the old phone books they used to drop, on your doorstep, that's an NFL playbook. It's 500 pages. Well, that's the offensive playbook. Defensive playbook, there's only 1 page. No, it's true. There's just a picture of the football, and it says, "Go get it, boys." You don't have to be smart to play defense. Just kidding. But I was like, great. I got a book, got shoes and socks, and I was kind of pretty much at that point, I'm just thinking, well, I'm just going to go make it happen. Because I had made up in my mind that I wanted to be a professional football player. I wanted to be rich and famous and have fun and have a long career. And so I was just going to make it happen, right? You ever do something where you think I can just will this to happen, right? Well, that's what I thought. And so, great. Went to a meeting, didn't learn much because they don't start on page 1 of the playbook, and in the NFL, they don't really care about rookies, especially 6th rounders who are probably not going to make the team anyways. But it was fine. We left the meeting. I was like, I'll study the book later. I'll figure that out. But I'm going to go out on the field here at practice and make it happen. So first NFL practice, show up, we're running around, everything's fine. Get into this scrimmage, where it's first offense against first defense. These guys start going against each other. And I remember sitting back there whoa, these guys are pretty good. A little bit different caliber of athlete than I was used to at Princeton or Yale. Thank you. And the coach, after a couple of plays says, "You're in." And I run into the huddle, and now it's real. Now this is real, right? So I'm in the huddle. I'm hyperventilating a little bit. And the quarterback comes in, and I'm just hoping I know when he calls the play. Yeah, I didn't know anything, right? And every team's got their own language. It's like being dropped in a foreign country, and you don't know the language. I'm just hoping I know if it's a run or a pass. And the quarterback steps in, and he calls the play, and I knew it was a pass. It's like, great. I don't have to ask the guy next to me. Break the huddle, come up to the line of scrimmage, and there's John Randall in front of me. First play in the NFL, I got to block John Randall. I'm thinking, this is great. This is fantastic. I am going to lock John Randall down and prove to everybody that I belong here, because I had something to prove. I'd only been there a few hours, but back then, hazing was not just tolerated. It was pretty much encouraged in the end. So everyone was making fun of me because, I had red hair, because I was from St. Paul, whatever. I was like, I'm going to lock John Randall down. Everybody's going to stop making fun of me, okay? Because I want to be a 10-year player here. So as an offensive lineman, what you want to do when you're pass blocking a guy is you want to punch him in his chest, punch him to stop his momentum, and then grab onto him. Don't hold on to him. Grab onto him, okay? Doesn't sound like a big difference, but there's 10 yards of difference between grabbing and holding, okay? Well, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to punch John Randall so hard, my hands are going to go through his chest and come through his back, okay? I was going to sacrifice John Randall on the field because I had to make a statement. Well, the ball snapped, and I came out, and I punched as hard as I could. But I also closed my eyes because I was super scared, you know. John Randall's a bad, bad man, you know. He paint his face, and he barks like a dog, and he's not right, okay? Let's just say that. And he knows he's not right, okay? But, well, I punched, and I closed my eyes, and I didn't feel anything. And that's a bad feeling as an offensive lineman, right? So I opened my eyes, and John's no longer here. He's here. So this went from going to be a great play to a lookout block. Look out. It was a disaster, and the rest of practice, it didn't get much better. And I'm kind of walking off the field thinking, I don't know what just happened, but it was. And then Mike Tice, my O-line coach, comes up next to me. He's like, well, how'd it go out there today? I was like, that wasn't too bad. He said, oh, it was bad. I was like, yeah, but I did some good things. I might have said it as like a question. Yeah, but I did some good things? And he's like, no, you didn't. He's like, look, you're not good enough to play tackle. Tackle's the guys on the outside. That's where the really good guys play. It's like, okay. He's like, you're not good enough to play guard either. And I'm like, well we're running out of options. He said, you ever played center before? I said, no, I've never played center in my life. I've always been the biggest, strongest guy, you know. He's like, all right, well, this afternoon, so we practice in the afternoon too. He said, be out here 5 minutes early. We practice snapping the football. I'm like, okay, you're going to make a major position change here day one in the NFL. Not sure how this is going to go. But anyways, so I'm out there early, way early. Here come the quarterbacks, and 5 minutes before practice, we just practice snapping a football. You know, you just bend over and put your hand on the ball. Quarterback puts his hands underneath you. Takes a little getting used to. And you just practice snapping the football. And chances are, if you watch football, either at home or in person, you've never hit the person next to you and said, oh my gosh, did you see how the center snapped the ball? That was perfect. How does he do that? No, you will not notice the snap at all today unless when? Except when it's on the ground. And then you're going to blame the center. It could be the quarterback's fault once in a while, people. I'm just letting you know. But I digress, okay? That day, and every single day for 15 years, I went out 5 minutes early and practiced snapping the football. Why? Because it's that important, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, you have the greatest play in the history of the world called best players. Quarterback doesn't get the ball, it's not going to work, right? So we do that every single day. And then the whistle would blow and practice would start, and everybody breaks into their own groups. And the quarterbacks and receivers, they get to be on the 50-yard line where the grass is just perfect, and they just throw their little ball, a little route there. Linemen, we run down into the corner. We're like in the parking lot, it's like rocks and broken glass. And we get these things called chutes, okay? It just shoots, it's like a big box, but it's no sides, just the frame. If that makes sense. You get in the chute like this in your stance, and you got to come out of your stance, and you got to stay low. If you come up, you're going to hit your head on one of the metal bars, okay? The chute teaches you leverage, teaches you to stay low. Okay, low man wins in line play. I know nobody cares about line play. You just want to follow the ball. I get it. I'm a lineman. This is my world, okay? So it's all about staying low. And then we do that, and then we get these like 10-foot long, 18-inch wide boards, and we call them boards. And we get in the boards like this in the stance, and what the board does, it trains you to keep your base. So if you're low and you got a base, you got a chance. If you stand up and you get your feet together, you're dead meat. Because those defensive guys, they start drooling when they see a lineman like this, because they know those guys, they're cheap. They're cheap. They're bad. They're dirty players, every single one of them. All right? So this is like, I think the NFL is the highest level, right? There's no super NFL. You know these drills, snapping the football and staying low and cleaning on the boards? That's the same drills they do in college. It's the same drills they do in high school. I coach middle school football. It's the same drills we do in middle school. You know why? because the fundamentals never change. What changes is the attention that we pay to them, right? It's kind of human nature to say, I know that, I've done that, what's next? It's like, no, there are certain things in life, it's like, no, this is it. This is all you need to do. And the fact that you've done it 10,000 times before, it does not matter. What matters is that you're doing it again. You know, I'm fortunate to play with a lot of great players, like guys, Hall of Fame players, okay? Jared Allen, going to the Hall of Fame, played with Jared Allen. Are Hall of Fame football players just that much more talented than everybody else? No, except for Randy Moss. But everybody else the same. Every Hall of Fame player I played with, they were talented, but talent is really, really cheap in the NFL. There's a lot of big, strong, fast guys. What set them apart was they were maniacal about mastering the fundamentals. And if you master the fundamentals, it gives you a foundation. It allows you to be consistent, to play at a high level for a long period of time. But the thing that I love about the fundamentals is that don't tell anybody this. I know nobody's watching. It doesn't take any talent to snap a football between your legs. It doesn't take any talent to stay low or to keep your feet apart. All you got to do is commit to it. Just commit to it every single day. Some days it's going to be more fun. It's never fun. Some days it's going to be more fun and easier than others. But it's the days when you don't feel like doing it. Those are the days that really, really matter, right? And that's the beautiful thing about our faith, right? God did not send his son for us for the really smart or the really good looking, thankfully, right? Or the really talented. Available to every single one of us. We just have to say yes. We just have to commit. I think we got to show up every single day. So this is a Super Bowl ring, okay? Vikings fans never seen one. Just want to make sure you know. I don't want you to get confused, like, what is that thing? So does this mean, there's a question, does this mean that I was successful as a football player? Okay? Told you Super Bowl I played in, it was 12 years ago. It's when the lights went out. Remember that in New Orleans? See if the lights go out this year. But first play we ran that game was, it's called dot right 40 gut. Most basic football play in the book. Everybody runs it. Running back just steps to the right, gets the ball. Lineman step to the right. You block the guy in your gap. He finds the hole. It's not a complicated game. If football players were smart, we'd be doing something else for a living. Okay? We ran dot right 40 gut. That's how we started off the Super Bowl. That's how we led it off. Basic play. If you'd have that, if they'd had a drone back then and take video of that play and run that video back, and if you were to remove all the people in the stands and all the people on the sidelines and all the other guys on the field except me, you know what I was doing? You know what you see me doing? You just see me snapping a football in the chutes coming out on the boards. All I was trying to do in the Super Bowl was trying to execute the fundamentals that I'd spent every single day for the last 15 years trying to perfect. I didn't think of it like, hey, I'm playing in the Super Bowl. That would have been a scary, scary thought. And I certainly wasn't saying, well, I'm just going to go out there and make it happen. I knew I couldn't rely on myself to just make it happen. I clunged, I don't know, to those fundamentals. And I had that foundation. I just focused on what I had to do. I didn't worry about anything else. Now that Super Bowl, fast forward to the end, it was 4th and goal. We were up 5 points, 4th and goal at the end of the game. 49ers had the ball. And the game was going to be decided by this one play, right? This one play. And I was on the sidelines. I couldn't do anything about it. So, I'm a Vikings fan, so I'm thinking, well, this is not going to go well. Ye of little faith. And I remember kind of thinking to myself, like, gosh, if we blow this, because we were up 28-6, and they came all the way back. I was like, gosh, if we blow this, everyone's going to be saying how bad we are. We should be embarrassed. We're losers. And I was like, is that true? And I thought, well, if we lose this game, we're definitely not successful. And I knew it was my last game. Ray Lewis had already announced that he was retiring, so I didn't want to overshadow him, so I kept it to myself. Yeah, I knew we would not be successful, but you know what? As a football player, I know I did two things. I committed to trying to master the fundamentals every day. I showed up every day, and I tried to make my teammates better. And to me, those two things, that might not be success. That might not be success in the football terms, but to me, that's greatness. That's greatness because those things are in your control. And the world's a fickle place, right? One moment you say the world can be patting you on the back, and the next it can be kicking you in the butt, right? It doesn't matter. God does not call us to be successful in worldly terms. But what he does call each and every one of us to do, he calls us to greatness. And if you look at in the Bible or since the beginning of time, people who have led great lives, what's the one common thread, right? To me, it is commitment. It is commitment. It is going all in for God. It's dying to themselves. It's putting God first, others second, and themselves third. That's what we're called to. The world's going to judge us in every single way, and that's fine. I guess that's how it is. But I want to leave you with the fact that you were not called to be successful, but every single one of us was called to a life of greatness, and it's all within our grasp. Thanks be to God. Thank you very much, and God bless you.